I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here today with Dr. Iris Freelander, and we'd like to talk to you today about whether you are religious or spiritual or both. And I guess the answer to that is yes, isn't it, Iris?
Hopefully. And I think that people who are happy in their lives and happy within themselves and with their place in the world are both. And those people who are exercise over religiosity are very often, forgive me, whoever is listening, who might be doing this, but often they are more bound up in dogma and what their specific religion teaches them, as opposed to incorporating it into their own life. And I think most people incorporate their religion into their own life and therefore live a life of spirituality with the religion undergirding them. Don't you think so?
I think so. I think even over the years, you and I have spoken about people that have no interest in either religion or spiritual issues and how spiritual they are, because we are all spiritual beings, and we are all mental beings, and we are all physical beings. And religion, of course, from a historical perspective, has given structure to spirituality. We would hope that every religion would be spiritual, but we know that spirituality runs through as a common thread through religions. And we talk, you and I, and metaphysics and new thought, especially about universal principles, principles that can be applied regardless of faith tradition, regardless of religious backgrounds, and regardless of theologies and dogmas, and move more into the aspect of those truths that are universal, that, as you said so well, undergird this dimension of life. And there is this reality and this truth that, of course, we believe in. And metaphysics is at its very core, not only as a science, but as a religion, and as a spiritual movement, is about that which it transcends the things that we're able to see and touch. And that's why, at least in our movement, we spend so little time on dogma and creed and so much more time on principle and the application of principle and the use of these principles to empower and strengthen people of all faiths, and to let go of the judgment of that is sometimes a part of religion, but not always a part of religion. And religion has played an important and dynamic role in the development of humankind. But the truth is that spirituality is that thread that has run through the human experience and through the spiritual experience and through all of the aspects of philosophy and religion and the things that we talk about on this program and that we talk about in houses of worship and that universities talk about. And it is a liberating philosophy, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it's those persons who are more open-minded and accepting of others might have a very strong religiosity backing them, but they don't try to put that off on others. And a truly spiritual person will accept all religions as being valid and all religions as being necessary for the people who adhere to that religious belief. And of course, metaphysically speaking, we've all been a part of every religion in our past, prior to this lifetime. And so we come in to the parents we do. We choose our parents. We make our an outline, as it were, of our future, of that forthcoming life. And so we choose the religion that's going to help us with that lifetime endeavor toward our own character growth and what we wish to accomplish in that lifetime. And if we look at life like that, we are more apt to be totally accepting of all religions, knowing they are essential, and knowing that they fulfill a very great need in the lives of others, and therefore to just boost people and learn what we can about those various other religious beliefs if we need to. If it bothers us, then find out more about it. And usually it's when we don't bother to look into the underlying factors of a different religion that we have an aversion to it and to the people of that religion. And it's a very poor person indeed who would be speak in a very detrimental way of any other religion. Isn't that so?
I think it is, and yet we have a lot of conflict over the issues of religion in the world, and I'm thinking back a long time ago when we first began this program, and I think we were guests on someone else's program, and we were being interviewed about metaphysics and new thought, and the question was put to us about, well, is there one religion that's right or one religion that's wrong? And the answer that I gave and that I've given over these many years is that every religion is right for a certain number of people at a given time, and that the spiritual values that we are talking about and that we strive to share are universal principles, so that we're able to allow people to be both religious and to be spiritual and to be wherever they are in their spiritual and religious walk. And also, I think it's important not to think of one group or a person as being higher or lower on the rung. I think it is a universal reality that that religion and spirituality reach out to the deepest parts of our being and to the deepest recesses of our being to call out the divine within us. And so that's it. It is hopeful that we're all both religious and spiritual. And again, it doesn't even have to be spoken. And I'm just thinking about people who say that they have no faith tradition or have no religion, and we've have some very wonderful common friends who are atheists who are profoundly spiritual, and at least in our observation, and is a wonderful thing to be able to see people from that perspective as well.
Yes, and that type of a person are those who are spiritually oriented, and they don't realize it because they think in terms of religiosity. And then I know someone very well who didn't attend church at all, and that lady was very busy raising a family and was considered to be one of the most wonderful mothers in the area. But she said she couldn't abide the religiosity. Well, I think in a prior life she probably had very unpleasant experiences. Perhaps she was one of those so-called witches who was drowned. Who knows? But she probably had some unpleasant happening in a prior life because she had such an aversion to the religiosity. But no person could have been more spiritually oriented. And that's true with many people, as you just said, many people that we know. And so, yes, we can be spiritual and religious, but and to me that would be ideal, because most of us need the undergirding of a specific religion, and but we also need to respect everyone else's specific religion. And then when we do, we're, I think, very adjusted and happy. And if we don't, then we're like fighting windmills.
Mm-hmm. And I think we do spend a lot of time fighting windmills, don't we? And the essentials have to do with the reality that we are spiritual at the very core of our being, and that essence is so much a part of us. But we're also physical, and so it helps many of us to have a religious perspective from a physical standpoint and as a means to articulate our spiritual values. But the necessity of it is important to some of us and not to others. And so I think we need to be very, very mindful and aware of that. And also the fact that all of the truths that we share and the principles that we share are not validated because of the fact, or made real because anyone gives assent to them. They just are. It's the reality is that the nature of our being is as it is, whether we believe it or not. And so this connection that we have and this desire that we have to have values and have deep-seated values that tie us to something spiritual and unseen, and the mystery of it. And I think that's a great deal of what we're talking about. People, whether we admit it or not, are human beings and spiritual beings like to delve into the mysterious. and then when we delve into the mysterious, we like to be in a position to articulate what our experience has been. And as we do that, then we need to be cautious that it is a great mystery. The whole process is a mystery. And that mystery opens a lot of doors and may not give us a lot of answers, but it opens a lot of doors, and we need to open those doors and let the clear light of day in.
Yes, and we can save ourselves a lot of misery if we don't try to convince anyone else of our own personal beliefs. But if someone asks questions, then we can explain what our belief is. But not that this is the belief and not this is the only belief. But there's another factor, metaphysically speaking, that we have 7 bodies. And we have the physical body that we can see. Then all those 7 bodies interpenetrate. And the etheric energy body, then the astral or emotional body. And they make sense when we look at them in that way. Then there's the mental body, and then the soul, causal body, the Adonai, and the monad. So when we're balanced spiritually, those bodies are equally functioning. And when there's a paucity of energy toward any one of those bodies, then it shows in our demeanor and in our equilibrium. And the spiritual body, the holy monad, is our connection with Creator God. And so anyone who is very spiritually oriented would have that body highly functioning. And anyone who exercises and eats properly and gets and takes care of the physical body, their energy body would be functioning well. Anyone who controls their emotions and doesn't let the emotional body run away with them, then that emotional body functions well. And the mind is of the mental body, but not nearly all of it. And so, but that would be according to how we function mentally, and in a overall mental way, our thinking, and how well we can garner our thoughts and then use them to advantage, and so forth. So when we think man is fearfully and wonderfully made, and that we do have 7 bodies, and we don't even have to know what they are and the basic function. We can see the basic function, but then we honor ourselves more fully than just that we're physical and spiritual, and that's all there is to it. So then we're more apt to take care of ourselves and not lash out emotionally. So I would just like to have our listeners give some thought to that there's more than meets the eye there within themselves, and to honor that part, every part of themselves.
Mm-hmm. That honoring of self and honoring of others is eminently important. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature and information.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the New Thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
Well, in the last half of the program, I think we can talk about some ways of getting in touch with our spiritual nature, and that's probably an important aspect of our outreach and our counseling work. And as we get more closely attuned to our spiritual nature, what are some simple techniques that viewers could use?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to have some time alone. And a lot of people think they have to have the TV or the radio, they have to have some kind of, I'll call it noise. And we can use noise that we can't control as white, some people call it white noise, and so that it's a background noise. And I know when I've been with large groups of people and they're chanting or doing their any verbal output, then you can use that as a background and then just go into your own time of meditation. But we need the time, we need to take time for ourselves, just for alone within ourselves. And then keeping our bodies healthy would be another thing. And some of the most wonderful spiritual teachers that we know of, that we read about, have had physical illnesses. So I'm not saying we can't be fully spiritually coherent without using the physical body, but it's easier and it makes life more wonderful if we do take care of our physical bodies. And then to find some time for meditation, prayer and meditation. And usually, if the prayer might be more brief than the meditation itself, because prayer is, as we always say, is prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening. And there's no question we can't ask in our meditation and get answers to those questions. So just to form our own plan for our days and our evenings, and then a retrospection in the evening is very helpful. It's very beneficial. Then, and just as meditation the first thing in the morning is very helpful and helps us to collect ourselves and collect our energies.
Just before we get away from that this issue of retrospection and introspection and a retrospective look at the day, that is, I think, we're touching upon some things that in our busy lives many of us just don't do, and we would all benefit to do any one of them or any number of them. But this issue of taking time for some introspection, to collect our thoughts, center ourselves, and to take a brief assessment of the day is a wonderful way to end it, isn't it?
Yes.
Not in the program, but not in life, but the end of the day. Yeah, that's a good way to end the life too. But well, that's another program. So.
Yes. Well, yes, indeed it is, because we are in touch with that divine within ourselves when we are either introspection or retrospection. And at the end of the day, we can just quickly review our day, not beating ourselves over the head, but seeing what we would like to have done differently throughout the day, how we might have done anything differently, how we might have added to something. And as we do that, then it becomes a part of our psyche and our persona, and we're more apt to do those things similarly the next day in a more positive way. So it helps us in that way. And also, I think we get more help from our dream state than most people realize. So it leads us right into our dream state, and it takes us to the inner planes where we're given training and information that we need. And so whatever helps us to be more relaxed when we go to bed at night and when we go to sleep, then that's what we need to do.
Right. This idea of personal correction, I think is something that is maybe new to people. And I think you touched upon something that is tremendously important, and that's not to beat ourselves up. That's not the point. We think about punishment, because that's the way many of us were raised and we operate. But as we correct ourselves, as we form ourselves, we do that through the recollection, through the process of taking an assessment of our spiritual day. And our spiritual day, interestingly, people think of spiritual life and religious life as going to church and doing all these pious things, which is certainly may be a part of that, but really has to do with how we responded to the people around us, how we responded to nature, how we responded to ourselves. And those are spiritual corrections, and we can correct and form ourselves, and have a time when we're able to do that and share with others. And we do that. You and I do that, and help people in this assessment. And through that correction, we become more profoundly spiritual, and more connected with that spiritual essence, don't we?
Yes, we do, because that's where our interest lies. And whatsoever we think is in our heart, that's what we are. And so as we think those thoughts, they become interconnected, so that it's a part of us. And just as if we have angry thoughts, or in our minds, if we lash out at what someone has done during the day that we haven't liked, then it's counterproductive. But if we rationalize, well, that person, we can even say that person just simply doesn't know any better, or that person must be going through a lot of trauma right now. And it's so wonderful to be able to send people light, and just a loving thought with light, because it makes a difference in them. And we can do that in the evening when we're doing our retrospection. We can just ask God to bless whoever might have had trouble during the day in any way, whether it affected us adversely or not. Mm-hmm. But we can send love and light to any person, and it makes a difference in their lives. And so it's such a blessing to be able to do that, and to know that we're truly helping others.
Mm-hmm. And we can send it to ourselves.
Exactly.
And at the heart of that is something that we've done a lot of programs on, and a lot of counseling and presentations on, but that's forgiveness. We can forgive ourselves.
Yes.
And what is more profoundly spiritual and at the heart and essence of religion than forgiveness and redemption? And I'm not talking about from a theological standpoint. I'm talking about from a practical standpoint. Mm-hmm. We can redeem ourselves to the true nature of our being as we forgive ourselves. And we forgive ourselves for the shortcomings, and we forgive ourselves for the failings, and forgive others. And so often we do work on forgiving others, but we need to do a little forgiveness of ourselves. And that's tremendously important, I think.
It's totally important, and it's totally essential. It's essential for our good health, too. And if you look at individuals and see various individuals, and see those who look serene, those who look calm, those whose faces in repose are just that, reposed, then you can see the people who are able to handle the exigencies of life in a positive way, and to treat themselves as they do others. What is it? Love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, that implies love of self. And I think in our work ethic, and in our more Puritan aspect in this country, we've been taught that it's wrong to love ourselves. It's wrong to put ourselves as an important factor. That perhaps has been a detriment in our society. And they talk a lot today about self-esteem. Well, self-esteem we have self-esteem when we are happy with what we're done, not when we're just defiantly doing something and saying, well, that's me, that's what I do. It makes a difference in the person's life if they do it the former way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you just touched upon something that I was just thinking about from a purely religious standpoint when you mentioned the Puritans. And the Puritan thought and Puritan school, as we think about it being very conservative and very rigid, and all of the things that went with that tradition, interestingly today has evolved into what we know as the Congregational movement, which is the most liberal. So the Puritans have gone from being the most conservative to being one of the most liberal. And the theology of that particular group has transitioned completely, although the core of the being, the core of their spiritual essence, and we're not here to talk about the Congregationalists or the Puritans, but at the core of their being is the spiritual nature, and that's always been eminently important, whether they were conservatives or whether they are liberals. But it's interesting to see the change.
Well, it
Yeah.
creates balance. And I suppose when we go in one direction, the pendulum has to swing as far in the other direction, opposite direction. So, overall, I would say to our audience just to review how they allow life to affect them. And if they find they're tense and overwrought in the evening, then do something about it. And what they can do about it is just to see how they've reacted, and then to see how they would have preferred to have done, and then use that as a guide for future times. And it's training. We're just training ourselves. And we have schools of thought that train others. Well, we need to train ourselves first, don't we?
We need to train ourselves. We need to be willing to train ourselves and to change our way of thinking. And as we change our way of thinking, we become more profoundly spiritual, because I think one of the principles of spirituality is that aspect of change, and embracing a change, not in externals, although that may be, but the changing of our interior being, and that interior change and that personal relationship with the spiritual essence is really at the core of what can transform our lives from misery to great joy.
Yes, and I think one of the saddest things we can ever hear anyone say is, I never forgive and I never forget. And I've heard people say that, and they've been very miserable human beings. So we're our own worst enemy when we can't forgive and we can't forget. Because if we can't, then we need to change and not take pride in the fact that that's the way we live, because that's no way to live.
Right, and usually the next thing that people will say is, I'm only human, and that's not true either, because the actual topics that we're talking about today are religion and spirituality, and we are not only human, but we are profoundly more than just human beings. We are spiritual beings, and we are living and vibrant and vital and empowered with limitless potential, and with the ability to forgive and to love and to build and to share and to grow as a spiritual community. And so it's a great privilege to be able to do that. And we hope that the information that we've shared with you today has been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.